Good afternoon, Dumaguete. It is a sunny day of the 2nd of May 2022. This is Harriet Kian Garcia serving you the hottest and latest news of the hour. For the headlines, for national news, Filipino soldiers and workers rose during the Cavite Mutiny on January 20, 1872. The secularization movement in the Philippines demands greater rights for Filipino Roman Catholic clergymen under the Spanish colonial administration. The revolt in Cavite resulted in several priests and laymen getting arrested, and some were condemned to death by the garrote. 250 Filipino soldiers and workers, along with Filipino secular priests, revolted and clamored for reforms during the Cavite Mutiny in 1872. The mutiny started when a decree was released by Governor General Rafael de Escudo stating that the arsenal workers would no longer be exempt from the tributo and polo, a privilege they had enjoyed in the past. Few Spaniards were killed during the mutiny, however, immediate actions led by the government forces put an end to this uprising. More details from Blythe Tilos. Blythe?
Thank you, Harriet. Together with me, I am interviewing a witness of the Cavite Mutiny, Miss Sheena Katapusan. Good evening, Miss Sheena.
Good evening.
Okay, Miss Sheena, as a witness, I want you to tell me who caused the mutiny and when did this happen?
The Cavite Mutiny happened on January 20th, 1872, and it is caused by Governor General Rafael de Izquierdo.
Okay, so I guess that's the reason. Okay, so now, what do you think caused it and how did it happen?
Okay, what I know is that the cause of the mutiny is that there was a release of decree by the Governor General Rafael de Izquierdo, and on that decree, it is ordered that the arsenal workers would no longer be exempt from the tributo and polo, which is a privilege they had enjoyed in the past. However, official accounts argued that the revolt was part of a larger movement with the aim of overthrowing the Spanish government and asserting independence. So the plan they have in the mutiny is that the revolt began after midnight in Manila, with rebels setting fires in Tondo to distract the authorities. They also sent a signal to the rebels in Cavite by using fireworks to then lay siege to the arsenal. But, however, in reality, the mutiny in Cavite began earlier in the evening, and many of those who pledged support defected and vowed loyalty to Spain.
For my last question, do you think the mutiny was successful?
Well, actually, the mutiny was unsuccessful, and the Spanish government used the incident as a means to suppress the increasing calls for a more liberal administration.
Okay, so due to the unsuccessful mutiny, the Spanish government used the incident as a means to suppress the increasing cost for a more liberal administration. Blight Estilos reporting. Back to you, Harriet.
During the Spanish colonial administration, the regular and secular clergy made efforts in strengthening the Catholic faith in the Philippines. The regular clergy aims to introduce faith, convert the natives, and establish religious communities in the country. Meanwhile, the secular clergy focuses on the management of the religious communities and ideally continue the work laid down by the regular clergy. Let us have more details from Leia Amor Alce. Leia?
Hello, good evening everyone. We are here to interview one of the Spanish regular priests about the conflict between the Filipino secular priests.
Our jurisdiction fell on the elected prelates. We're better prepared for missionary work because of our standards of discipline and asceticism. Our job was to introduce the faith, convert the natives, and establish religious communities. We argue that the episcopal visitations to occur, the congregation would be subjected to two sources of authority, the bishops and the provincial superiors. We refuse the episcopal visitations. We hope to avoid all violating our vows of obedience of our own superiors.
How about the circular priest? About their conflict between the relation of the Spanish regular priest.
We are priests who live in the world. We are under the authority of bishops and not members of a religious order. Our primary task was the management of the religious communities, and ideally, the regular priests maintained control over the parishes in the early stages of Christianizations. Out of necessity, because of our scarcity, to whom the parishes would be passed on, they refuse us, even if we produce the trained Filipino secular priest.
For a third national news, the revolt in Cavite resulted several priests and laymen getting arrested, and some priests were condemned to death by the garrote. Among the laymen were lawyers and businessmen. They were arrested upon the orders of Governor General Izquierdo, and these Filipinos were sentenced to varying terms of exile in Guam. Meanwhile, the three priests, Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora, were condemned to death by the garrote on the 15th day of February 1872. Let us have more details from Jennifer Villamil. Jennifer?
My question is, what can you say about the execution?
In the late night of 15th of February 1872, a Spanish court-martial found three secular priests, Jose Burgos, Mariano Gomez, and Jacinto Zamora, guilty of treason as the instigator of Mutiny in Cavite Navy Yard a month before, and sentenced them to death. Upon hearing the sentence, Burgos broke into sobs. Zamora lost his mind and never recovered, and only Gomez listened impassively, an old man accustomed to the thought of death. When dawn broke of the 17th of February, there were almost 40,000 of Filipinos who came, and surrounding the platform were the priest and the man whose testimony had convicted them, a former artilleryman called Saldua, would die. The three priests followed Saldua, Burgos weeping like a child, Zamora with vacant eyes, and Gomez head held high. Zamora went up to the scaffold without a word, and delivered his body to the executioner. His mind had already left it. Burgos was the last, a refinement of cruelty that compelled him to watch the death of his companions. At last, Burgos resigned himself. The executioner knelt at his feet and asked for forgiveness. "I forgive you, my son. Do your duty." And it was done. The friars wanted to make an example of Burgos and his companions so that the Filipinos should be afraid to go against them from then on. But the patent injustice, that official crime, aroused not fear but hatred of the friars and the regime that supported them, and a profound sympathy and sorrow for the victims. This sorrow worked a miracle. It made the Filipinos realize their condition for the first time. Conscious of pain and thus conscious of life, they asked themselves what kind of a life they lived. The awakening was painful, and working to stay alive more painful. Still, but one must live. How? They did not know, and the desire to know, the anxiety to learn, overwhelmed and took possession of the youth of the Philippines. The curtain of ignorance, woven diligently for centuries, was rent at last. Fiat lux, let there be light, would not be long in coming. The dawn of a new day was nearing.